Welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. Here we'll talk to the leaders in technology, culture, business, and the arts. We'll cover politics, advocacy, motherhood, writing, mental health, and mostly we'll focus on hope. Join Kim B. Davis, author, playwright, radio personality, event consultant, professional speaker on the Kim B. Davis Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have another dynamite panel this evening. We have first, one of our superstars is Tenita Bestseller Johnson. She is an author, coach, CEO, founder of So It Is Written, and she has put together this wonderful anthology entitled Hush, Breaking the Cycle of Silence around sexual abuse. And we have a dynamic panel here tonight that's going to talk about that. Quickly, I want to say good evening to Michele D. Clark. She is also a co-author, licensed therapist, inspirational speaker, and living inspired coach and business owner. We have Dominque Johnson. She's a co-author, minister, and business owner, and they all have tales of abuse, but have survived and are healing and now are thriving. Good evening, ladies. How are you?
Good evening.
I'm good.
Kim.
I'm great.
Wonderful.
Great. So, all right, let's get started. So, Tenita, you pulled together this anthology. Tell me why you pulled this together and what is the purpose and what do you hope to accomplish by doing this?
So I think the biggest thing, first of all, Kim, thanks so much for having us tonight. I think the biggest thing is to continually shine a light on dark places. And I think sexual abuse is one of those dark places that kind of gets swept under the rug every now and then. So you had the Me Too movement, and then with the George Floyd stuff, it just kind of got overshadowed. And so probably up until Bill Cosby was released, there was no other reference to sexual abuse in the media per se, like a big deal. And so we just want to keep the conversation going. So the book is a 2-for-1. The book is a great read, number one, but it's also a small group and a study guide. So each author at the end of the book, at the end of their story, added 3 to 5 questions that you can use in a small group, a Bible study, a community group, anything that you wish to use it as, but it gives you a blueprint and it gives you a model to use just to kind of get the discussion going and keep people talking, basically.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So now I want to ask, because the ladies, so this is part 2 of that conversation. So the ladies, Michele and Dominque, had shared part of their story.
Sure.
And I know that typically, especially right now during the pandemic, kids are back in school. But before that, you had many kids that were at home. And
Yes.
one of the big concerns that a lot of people had, kids are not safe at home. And some of them, school was a safe place. Can you talk briefly about some misconceptions that people have about what molestation and sexual abuse is versus reality?
Absolutely. So last night I actually did a Facebook Live with the authors, and we talked about some of the myths that people assume when it relates to sexual abuse. And one of those myths is that, we tell our kids don't talk to strangers. But the reality is most people who molest or rape, they know the person. They're familiar with the person. For me, it happened at home. It happened at my grandmother's house. It happened by a cousin who is a family member. So it wasn't an outsider. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't somebody I didn't know. It was somebody who was assigned to, quote unquote, babysit me or watch me when no one else was home, who then took advantage of the situation. So I think a lot of times people will say, oh, don't talk to strangers because I don't know this person. No, you can't go over their house. No, you can't spend the night. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of times it's happening right under our nose. I know for Michele, her biggest thing was this happened and his mother was in the other room. So she wasn't even like away from home. She was at home, just in another room, So it's one of those things where we think it has to be the big bad wolf and it has to be some man jumping out of the bushes. And That's just not the way it happens at all. The other myth is that people assume if you've been molested by someone of the same sex that you are automatically gay. My first experience was with a woman. It was with a female cousin. And then my second experience with molestation was a male hairdresser in his basement. And so for the longest, I struggled with my identity. I struggled with, okay, what do I label myself as now? Am I bi because I've been touched by a woman? Am I bi because she made me do things to her? Am I totally gay? You know, just really struggling to try to redefine who I was. And just coming to grips with it does not mean that you're gay. Like this happened to you. This was not something that you chose or you were born with or anything like that. Is there's evil in the earth. So literally there was a target and she hit the target. So I think those are two of like the biggest myths that we like to tackle when we do interviews, because the assumption, especially for men, I spent August talking to 6, 7 different African American men who were sexually abused as a child. And one of the things was the shame that goes along with saying I was molested by another male. Um, it's already hard enough to say you were molested. It's even harder to say I was molested by another male, and then men automatically assume, okay, now this brother is gay. Not necessarily, but that's how we as a society will automatically tag them, and it's not fair. It's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is very true. Dominique, do you have any myths or misconceptions that you'd like to add to that?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the question was, do you have any myths or misconceptions that you'd like to add to the list that Tanisha just gave?
Yeah, that one of the myths that we discussed last night was people think that a lot of times that it's happening by some stranger. Like they think that somebody like some boogeyman come out of the bushes and they like just attacks you. Is there a percentage of that happens? Yes, but is it majority? Absolutely not. Majority of the people who are abused by somebody that they know, because they have easy access to them. They're accessible. They are able to continue to hide, and they're able to continue to do the things that they've been doing. One misconception that really disturbed me that people thought about was that when you are molested or raped or whatever, that you have this overtly outward experience of like crying and being uncontrollable. That's just not true. Most of us who have been molested in this group of people, for our authors, we didn't do that. We didn't even emotionally know how to sift through all of the things that we were feeling. So no, we didn't cry out loud. No, we didn't, run out screaming and say, hey, son, my cousin, came out with his pants down. Like, no, I didn't do that. And many of us other women didn't do it either, because we didn't know what to do. You unfortunately, you freeze and you become very scared and ashamed. And a lot of people are ostracized after they even tell. So when you are that young, I was 9 years old. I didn't even fully comprehend what the ramifications would be if I did say something. But what I knew for sure is that my cousin told me he would kill me and that nobody would believe me. So I never said anything. So it's really a great thing that we are continuing this conversation, because there's so many myths, unfortunately, that people, I don't even know where they come. We had a little session, talking about it yesterday. We don't even know how the people can even construe these things in their mind to even ask somebody or say is a myth to somebody, when you obviously have no idea the amount of stress, strain, emotional turmoil. Just like Tanisha was just talking about, that sense of identity. I didn't like boys for a second either. I thought that, boys were bad and all they do is hurt you, and all they do is make you do things that you don't want to do. And so I went through that phase where I thought I was just gonna like girls because it would be easier.
Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of us have to be willing to come out and be open about it so that we can destroy the myths, so that more people, more men, women, teenagers will come out and just say, hey, you know what, I'm scared, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Somebody abused me, somebody touched me, somebody assaulted me. Because if you don't, it's gonna kill you on the inside. It's gonna drown you, literally. So
and that's a great descriptor for that. A lot of times when I talk to people who have been abused, they talk about it feels like you're drowning. There's so many different emotions and they don't know how to dig through that and come out from underneath it. But Michele, I want to turn it over to you. Are there any myths or misconceptions that you'd like to add to the list?
Absolutely. Expound on one and then add to another one. But the myth that if you're being abused or raped, well, why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you stop it? Why did you continue to go back around this person? And so that's one of them. And as Tanisha had alluded to earlier, I was at the gentleman's, I use that word loosely, I was at his home and his mom was in the other room, and fight, flight, freeze response to traumas. And mine was freeze. First, I tried to fight, but not not hitting him or somebody like, well, I'd have kicked him in the ding ding. And the thing is, I was 14 at the time. And prior to that, that was my response when I was not in the traumatic experience. If someone would have said to me as a 14-year-old prior to the experience saying, if somebody tries to have sex with you, because I was a virgin at the time, how would you handle that? And I would have said, I'll kick him in the ding ding, or I'll scream, or I'll, knock him out, or, I wish a brother would, or, you say all those things, which is cute, at the time. And I'm not trying to minimize, but I'm just trying to impress upon people that, it's not like that when the spit hits the fan. We can all say what we would do, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but when it actually comes down to it and you're faced with that situation, you don't know what you're gonna do. You don't know how you're gonna respond. And I never would have thought that I was a freezer. If my mom had known at that time, because I did eventually tell her that I had sex, but I didn't tell her I was raped. She never would have thought I was raped, because she's like, oh no, Michele, she beat somebody's butt. I wish somebody would. I know she can handle herself. And that's so that's a misconception. The other one that just fell out of my head, I knew I should have said both of them and then expounded. But I think the other one was, well, sometimes people don't, why did you wait so long to tell? You got to be lying. Why now? Why are you telling now? Yeah, okay, right, whatever. And the thing of it is first of all, we already go through the self-doubt in our own minds, being afraid, like Dominque said, you're afraid, you're ashamed, the guilt, will someone believe me? You're going through all this self-talk in your own mind. And so first you have to battle with yourself to even get the courage to tell someone who you believe might be your support system, might be there for you. Heaven forbid that person doesn't believe you, laughs at you. I know one of the other, authors said, when they did share, a person laughed at them and he was like, okay, they just didn't tell anybody else. Or somebody just straight out call you a liar and, a hoe, and you just trying to break up the family, whatever. So you're faced with all those things, and then you finally tell, and then someone doesn't believe you. So it takes a lot. It takes a whole lot to really come out and tell. Like I said, I told my mom that I had sex, but I didn't tell her I was raped. And it wasn't until I was on a radio station, I was either a late teen or early 20s. I can't remember if I was in high school senior year or if I was coming back from college, and I was on a radio station. It was about sexual assault. And that's when I admitted that I was raped. So the first time my mom heard that I was raped was on, whatever the radio station was at that time. I think it was 107.5 WGCI, out in Chicago. That's where I'm from. And so, it's just, it's a myth that people are able to, I'm even going to say people are able to blossom. I want to put it in that way. People are able to blossom and bloom at their own time. Everybody's flower doesn't open at the same time. You have different types of flowers and they all need different kind of care. And so when someone finally gets the care and feels safe enough to be able to share what's happened to them, especially like this. And I know Tanisha can attest to this. There's some people who backed out who were going to write because they realized they weren't really ready to share this, and then all the repercussions that comes with it. And so you really have to be ready. And we talked a little bit about that on the live yesterday, that you have to put the mask on yourself first. You have to get your own self in order to have that kind of gumption and tenacity to be able to share and face what may come after that.
Thank you for sharing that. I remember on the last show we talked and you said that you had told your story on the radio station, and that was the first time that your mom heard it. I also remember you saying that when you told your mom you had sex, she didn't take it very well, and it went downhill from there. And Dominique had a similar conversation with her mother in telling her, and it didn't go well. Tanisha, was that your experience as well when you shared, or did you share what had happened to you? I know you've written about it, but at what point did you share? Were you an adult at that point?
I was. So I'll never forget. I was coming from the movie War Room. So whatever year that came out, I was coming from the theater, pulling in the driveway, and I heard the Spirit of the Lord tell her today. And so I told my mother, I said, one of the reasons why our relationship is so strained is because I feel like you didn't protect me. I was both molested by this female cousin and this male hairdresser. And her response was a bit peculiar. It was one of, do you want to press charges? There's still a statute of limitations in effect as it relates to the male, but she didn't address the female cousin issue at all. Of course, because that's a family member. So, and I explained to her, my purpose in telling you is not to get restitution or to sue or to get this person locked up. It's totally because I'm about to write about it. It is about to be in a book. It's about to be a whole nonprofit. I do a live event around sexual abuse. So it's not a brand that I chose, but since it happened, it kind of morphed into something so much bigger than me. But I never tried to tell anybody when I was young, just out of fear, just scared that I would get in trouble. Because we talked about also on some of our other lives that over time, the body responds. So you start to enjoy the feeling. You may not necessarily like the person, or you may not necessarily, something is wrong, something is off, you have to sneak and do it. You probably shouldn't be doing it, but at the same time, the end result, the feeling, the body responds the way the body responds. So.
And that's physiological. It's the same thing. And I've heard this, and correct me if I'm wrong. People have written about being assaulted or being abused and having an orgasmic response.
Yes.
Not because they enjoyed it, but because it's the body's physiological response.
Right. To what? Yes, the body is being stimulated, and if done properly, it doesn't know who's doing the stimulation. It's just, yeah.
Exactly. So I want to start off with you, Tanisha. Tell me, what are some things, and I want you guys to think back on each of your situations. What are some things that you would do, not that you would do differently, but that you would be on the lookout for if you have children in the same position, that you would tell people, no, that's not right? For example, I have heard from people who will say, you never let a child sit on anybody's lap. I don't care who it is. They don't sit on anybody's lap, because a lot of times what will happen, people will play tickle games, and that's how molestation and abuse happens. And so for some people, that becomes a rule. Nope, you can't sit on your grandfather's lap, your uncle's lap, whoever. And I'm wondering, are those rules that people should go by? What are some things that you would suggest to people that if they see something and it sparks in them, is that something I need to pay attention to? It doesn't feel right. Or am I overthinking it?
So, the particular cousin who molested me was a person who stayed in her room all the time, behind closed doors. Literally, it could be a house full of people and a party going on, and she would be in her room with her door closed and locked. So anytime a child is basically resorting to their room. Like during the pandemic, I noticed my son went through a bit of depression where he would just sleep all day, or he would be in his room or in his bed all day. And eventually, we did realize he had fallen into some sexual sin. So again, you have to know those signs. And then he also became angry. So when a child becomes really angry, or they're really mad, or every response is just nasty. And I mean, he used to be a bubbly, smiley kid, and then all of a sudden he was just down and mad and angry and just really nasty to his sister and yelling and screaming extra loud. Those types of things is when you notice that something has really shifted. Something has shifted. The other thing is some of the parameters that we put in place is like my daughter will have sleepovers, and she has like male cousins who are her age. And so we tell her, because she's not used to knowing what to do, we have to tell her, okay, yes, you're in your room, but since your cousin is in your room, you need to go in the bathroom and change into your night clothes. You know what I'm saying? Saying stuff like that so that she's not even changing in front of a boy. And then very limited to the kids who can spend the night over here or vice versa. Because I don't want to assume that it's not happening at my home because, oh, my daughter's in my home. But yeah, who am I bringing now into my home? For me, it happened in my home as well. It wasn't that I went somewhere else and it happened there. It happened in my home, but somebody else who had been touched was brought into the home. So
Those are very good tips. Dominique, can you share some tips on some things that we should look out for?
Absolutely. So I definitely agree with all of the things that Tanisha just said. I also would say you should be parents should be aware of how their children react when they're going over certain relatives' house, like how if they become apprehensive or if they become flighty, like I don't really want to go, I don't feel good, or or it's always something wrong, or they ask why we always got to go over their house, or why, just all of those little different things. So because for me, it was my cousin's house. So it was not a place that was unfamiliar. A lot of family would go over there all the time, you know what I'm saying? And they would have card games, they would, all the stuff. So it was like when I would, um, ask my mom, like, Mom, like, why do we got to go back over there? I've been over there all week because, I go to school from over there. She never like clued into that stuff. When your child goes from one phase to another, like I used to be when I was younger, I was very high energy, talk a lot kid. Like that's just how I've always been, like to the point to my mom would be like, let's play the quiet game on the way home. you know, you know, so I went from that to completely like affect was flat. Like I don't have anything to say. I don't really want to talk to nobody. I'm just really quiet. I'll do my stuff, or I'll draw, or I do my little tea parties in my room. I've always been into etiquette and all that stuff. Even then, I didn't know what it was called, but I've always been like that. So I would have my tea parties by myself, or I would always ask my mom before I would even think that she was going to send me back over there to go to my other cousin's house, because I knew it was safe there and I knew that nothing was going to happen there. So parents should really be aware of how their children mood is. Like really learn your kid just as much as you learn and you should know yourself, like how you feel when you're around certain people. Pay attention to how your kids move, like even the younger kids. So I grew up and my grandmother would always say a baby can tell you how somebody really is. Like, and I didn't really understand it until I started having children, and I would notice how my children reacted to certain people. And then when I paid attention to it and I started to look at that person, I saw what it was. So we really have to like just really pay attention and really build that trust with our children, and watch how they move, watch how their interactions are, watch how their facial expressions change. Watch how their mood changes. Watch how they, if they begin to ask you more questions, or if they get around certain people and they don't say anything.
Mhm.
Like, they can be talking the whole time you in the car and y'all can be cracking up, and then you get to Granny house and Uncle Jojo just walked through the door, and then the baby just stopped talking.
Mhm.
Something is wrong.
Mhm. Mhm.
Something is definitely wrong. Yeah.
Those are very good points. Thank you for sharing that. Michele, can you share some additional points for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to point out that in both the scenarios that Tanisha and Dominique referred to, is you saw on the one hand where Tanisha's son got louder, and that was uncharacteristic of him. You saw how Dominique was a chatty Cathy, and then she shut down. So looking at how children act opposite of the norm. So you can't say, oh, well, he's loud and now, no. So just look at the opposite, how they start behaving uncharacteristically. And beyond the observations, ask the questions. Ask the questions. I am trauma trained, and so I deal with children, and when I'm talking with them, I'm asking them questions that as an untrained parent, I would probably never ask my kids, because we're just not trained as parents to ask these types of questions. And more than not, when if the parent is a support person, because not all parents, I'll just say the caregiver, the caregiver who that we talk with about this, and the caregiver will say, well, little Johnny or little Juanita, why didn't you tell me? And the child will say, you never asked. You never asked. And the hardest thing is, how do you ask what you don't know to ask? Like I missed all the clues. I missed the child acting different. I missed the child shutting down when, like you said, Uncle Jojo walks into the house. I missed this. I missed that, when I walk into that child's room, I miss it. They hurry up and, pull the covers or do, something that's like, wonder, what you doing? Come on out here. And just kind of glossed over it. I didn't take the time to, because I'm sorry. Listen, I don't believe in all this privacy crap. If I pay for your phone bill, honey, I'm looking for your phone. So
that's right.
Period with a T on it. So, looking through, are you seeing porn sites on there? Are you seeing them engaging with other kids and certain ways? So yes, we do have to have those observations, but we also have to have those conversations. We have to have, I ask my daughter every periodic, I'll just ask her, are you okay? What's going on? Has anybody ever touched you inappropriately? Has anybody, and when I say inappropriate, I mean, has anybody ever touched your chest, your breast, you touch you down your vagina? And I'm not talking, I don't give little cute names. I'm telling what it is. I know she got squirming, like, oh, come on, mama, you always being a social worker, and but that, hey, I prefer to be guilty of that than not ask the questions, because I found out through my testimonies that other people that were close to me also had similar testimonies. I found out that people, like when I go to speak on stage or speak at events, people sometimes will, depending on the type of crowd and the intimacy of it, will, interact. But afterwards, I'll have somebody that maybe comes up to me that'll say, that same thing happened to me. And, when you look at them and when the event starts off, you would never have guessed that about that person. You never would have guessed that. And so quit trying to guess and just ask the questions, have the conversation. It's tough because you really don't know what the answer is going to be. Sometimes you'll think in your mind like, oh, I know it never happened, but don't go into it like that. Really go in as a blank slate, because kids can pick up on what they feel you want to hear. That's part one. They can pick up on that, and most kids, regardless of how much they act out, they actually want to please their caregivers. So, and then part two is when you do hear something that you may not expect to hear, you have to temper your response, because how you respond to that child can make or break all the difference as to whether or not they're going to continue to confide in you and tell you the whole story. See, they only going to tell you the tip of the iceberg just to kind of get the feet wet. I know, because I was that child. I ain't telling mom I was raised. Like I said, I just tipped my toe in and was like, I had sex. And she didn't grill me or call me a hoe, nothing like that. But her response was just kind of like not, we didn't have that open conversation. I remember she never even looked at me. She was watching Johnny Carson. And I slumped on the side of the couch to talk to her, and I ended up slinking away and just being like, okay, well, I know I ain't gonna tell her the rest of what happened, what she really needed to hear. Because I can guarantee you that if she knew that it was rape, that she would have had a very different response than she did thinking that it was consensual sex. I don't know if the consensual age back then in Illinois was, but I was 14, he was 19. So, but it just makes all the difference in the world. So observations, conversations, that would be my tips.
And those
And can I just add something to that really, really quick, Kim? So just to further discuss like Michelle's point, like even when I told my mom, she broke down crying and she had a really traumatic experience because she had experienced the same thing, but she wasn't able to verbalize it. But then after I had that conversation with her, the next thing she did was get on the phone and call all my aunties. And so then it was like, well, wait, I can't even tell you all the other stuff that he did to me because I only got to the part where he made me perform oral sex until sometimes I would be sick and throw up. So I can't tell you the other part to say, hey, he would fondle me and make me watch porn. Or he would tell me, he would make me watch it and then say, I'm going to do this to you. Or all the other things. So I couldn't even imagine myself telling her the other portion. And the crazy thing is, like, I wrote my own book called Rising Out the Pit of Rejection, in which I put a lot of that stuff in my book. And my mom read the book and she said, she called me and was crushed because she was like, why you didn't tell me the rest? And I'm like, because you couldn't handle the rest. And I couldn't trust you then to tell you the rest, because now everybody knows that I was molested by my cousin, and I already feel dirty and disgusting, like I'm scrubbing myself every day in the shower as a 9-year-old little girl crying, and I don't have any other place to go but back on the inside to hold the rest of the stuff, because you can't handle it, because you didn't told everybody that I was molested, and now every auntie is like, oh, you poor thing, and I just want to have a regular relationship with my family. I just want to be able to have a regular auntie niece relationship. I didn't need that. I just needed you to be my mom.
So Dominique, let me ask you. So when your mom told all your aunties, did anyone confront the cousin who did this?
Yeah, so we eventually, a meeting was set up and I talked about that too. A meeting was set up at a park, and myself, my cousin who molested me, my mom and his mom was there. And so we had conversation. My mom and his mom had a conversation and all of that, and it didn't really go well. And so basically my daughter said that your son did blah, 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 blah. And she was like, oh, she's lying. She's a little whore. And by this time, when it finally came out, I was about 12 or so. So she's like, well, she's just trying to cover that up because she wants to be fast, and she's probably dealing with boys and letting them do stuff, and she doesn't want to get caught. And so that was the narrative. So my mom and her of course had it out. And that whole other side of my family, that other cousins that I had relationships with, everybody literally stopped talking to me. Like, I became the black sheep. Nobody wanted me to come over their house and spend a night. Nobody wanted to call me. I was no longer invited to our cousins' night, because we used to have a cousins' night at my aunt's, and we would play Uno and have tournaments and eat pizza, and all of the cousins. I no longer was invited to those things. I became isolated, literally on the inside and with my family. So it was a horrible experience.
And I'm so sorry that that happened. But if you could tell your mother, what would you tell her that you would hope that she would do differently based on what you've been through?
I wish that even when I told her, number one, that she had the capacity to handle my secret. I don't even know. I don't want to even call it a secret, but handle that situation between us. Like some things just keep there. And then the other part was, I wish that she would have told me that she had experienced the same things and what it looked like when she was molested, you know, by female family members and male family members. And like, I didn't know. And I was a very mature little 9-year-old and 10, 9 and 10 and all. I was doing all sorts of stuff. And so I think that she should have put it in a way for me to understand, instead of telling me like you guys are talking about, don't sit on this person's lap and you can't stay over that part. You can't go over their house to spend a night. You can only go to your family's house, your auntie's house. You can't go to, your best friend have a party. It's a whole interview and, a whole thing for me to spend 24 hours with my best friend's house. So I wish she would have just talked to me and explain some things to me and explain to me, like, nobody's supposed to touch your vagina, Dominique. Like, and don't call it the cookie pot.
Right.
Now, actually, I think that was Tanisha that said they called it the cookie pot, but we called it the pocketbook. Okay. That's my granny's word. You don't let nobody touch your pocketbook. And so I used to be like, okay, Granny, I ain't gonna let nobody touch my pocketbook. In my mind, my pocketbook was a little thing, my little coins for the ice cream truck. I wasn't thinking about my vagina. Not pocketbook. So I'm like, okay, Granny, ain't nobody gonna touch my pocketbook, because I keep my pocketbook in right here next to, no correlation, none. So it was like conversations, like Michele was talking about, just talk. Like, we as children, our children have more capacity to understand things than we give them credit for. And even in my life right now, and I'm raising my children, there's conversations that I have with them that at first I thought they were not going to be ready for, but I found out that they surprised me, and I could have the conversations and they understand and receive it. I'm like, okay, Mom. And we talk about it. So conversation would have been great, and for her to just hold, as they say, hold your peace, and just leave some stuff between me and you. Of course, you handle it with the other parent, but everybody didn't have to know until I was ready. Until I was ready. So that's what I would tell her.
Thank you for sharing that, Dominique. Tanisha, what would you, if you could go back in time, what would you tell your mother you wish that she had done differently?
Oh, wow. I'll be honest with you. I don't think she had the capacity to do what I wanted her to do differently. She got pregnant with me at 13 and had me at 14. So it was a child raising a child with the support of her mother raising, my grandmother raising me as well. And we moved to Detroit when I was like 9 years old. But we didn't have those conversations at all. I really wish we would have had those conversations. We tried to cultivate an environment where our children can come to us and talk about anything. We're very candid about what we've been through so that our children know, okay, down the line, this is probably going to come up. You need to be on guard against it. Molestation, addiction to porn, addiction to masturbation, all of those things kind of go together. Drug addiction, alcoholism, all of those things, we are very candid with them about telling them what happened and what we've overcome, so that when they encounter it, they have a choice. You can't say, I didn't know. You can't say, nobody told me. So I think the biggest thing is, for me, I would have wanted her to be more authentic and loving. Even today, I still don't know the real her. And I don't know that she knows the real her, because she hasn't done her work. And when you haven't done your work, it's just mask on top of mask on top of mask. Long before COVID, people were wearing masks. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because that is an important part of a mother-child relationship. Michelle, what would you tell your mother to do if you could, what you would have liked for her to have done differently for you?
Yep, I think that when when I told her about having sex, yes, I omitted the rape part, but I wish that at that point that we could have had a conversation. We could have had that conversation. Beyond the, and not saying that she would have said this, but beyond the, you fornicating and now you're gonna go to hell. Some people, preach that message.
Mhm.
And that wasn't particularly her message, but I just felt because of our church background, I didn't feel whole anymore. I felt like I had a hole in me. I felt like I was unlovable, and I began to behave as such. So I just wish that at that moment that she could have turned to me and first of all acknowledged what I said and acknowledged that there had to be some sort of courage or strength in me to even come out and share that with her. And also that, as a parent, you're my child, and I know it had to be difficult for you to tell me. You may have told your best friend, you may have told, somebody on your peer level, but for you to come to an adult, I know I'm your mom, but I mean, the fact of the matter is kids don't tell their moms everything and they try to shield their parents from a lot. And so I wish she could have said, I'm almost talking as if I am now her talking to me and just saying, I can actually just go ahead and do that. Michelle, I want to praise you for your courage and strength in being able to talk to me about what happened. I don't know if you wanted to have sex or what happened with that, but I just want to let you know that you're still lovable because God, God finds you lovable and I find you lovable no matter what has happened. So let's sit down and let's just kind of talk about it. First of all, who was this guy? What happened? Because I don't know you to really date anybody. So I know you go out. So that's that kind of, and then go from there. But just having the conversation, and I don't know if you guys noticed my tone, having that tone, having the look of love and still concern on my face that invites someone to want to say more. So I can say all these things, but I'm saying it from my perspective because, again, I'm a licensed therapist, I'm a life coach. This is my genre. This is what I do for a living. It's not what my mom did for a living. She was a executive like secretary back in like the 70s. She stopped working when my older brother was born. So she was a homemaker from that point forth, and so she was not equipped. Yeah, she worked in mental illness, but she wasn't equipped she wasn't on the end where she was listening to the stories. Like I listen to the stories all day, with what I do, mental health for my licensing and then life coaching with other women. And so, so she's at a disadvantage. She's at an unfair disadvantage. And I'm not angry with her anymore. I was at the time because just like you, Tanisha, I felt like you didn't protect me. But she didn't even know what she was protecting me from. How can you protect me? Again, we didn't have the conversation. And she missed the observations when I started to lash out, when I started to sneak out the house, when I started sneaking boys in the house, when I started becoming verbally and physically combative towards her. I'm talking about like acting like she was just some chick on the street, kind of combative, and cussing her out, all that kind of stuff. I know some people are like, ooh, Lord, child. Yeah, ooh, Lord, child. I was lost. I was lost. And she missed it. She missed all the observations. She thought I was just being a defiant teenager. She didn't know. She didn't know what she didn't know because she didn't have the tools. So I wish that if I had a magic wand and I could make everything perfect, I wish that everybody needed to have a license to have a child. So that, and meaning that because we have to go through driver's training in order to drive. As a therapist, I have to have a license to practice. As a doctor, we go through all these professions, teachers, whatnot. But what about parents, or caregivers, the most important important role in the entire world that we don't even get paid for as far as monetarily, but we get paid by the seeds that we've sown and the product that we've produced.
Mhm.
And we don't have any kind of training, any kind of background, any kind of licensing, any kind of skill sets. There's no book. We have the what to expect when you're expecting, or what to expect with your 1-year-old. What about the rest of that? We don't have that. I'm also a parent. I am a trainer for parents. There is something out there, y'all. It's evidence-based practice. It's called Parent Training Management, the Oregon model, and also Parenting Through Change. So one is individual, one is group. So again, I'm equipped where my mom was not to handle and deal with these things. But through that, there are groups that we run for the community mental health. I do it at development centers. And we do have those groups. We actually have a group that's coming up. The child has to be enrolled in the service. So if there is somebody out there whose child is having some more than run-of-the-mill behaviors, you wonder what is going on. And it doesn't even have to be abuse for that child. It could just be oppositionalism or ADHD. It doesn't matter. But whatever, the child has to be in a treatment, and then the parent gets to attend this class for free. So, you can contact me at development centers for that group. And you can reach me at 313-531-2500. I'm extension 2215. And from there, it will give you because I'm now working from virtually from home, and it will give you that number to reach me if you are interested. Additionally, the groups that Tanisha and I will be running, hers is going to be on Monday, starting up this upcoming Monday, and I'll let her explain more about that. Mine's going to be in 2 weeks on Tuesday, on the 21st, and we're running it at my church, Greater Olivet Missionary Baptist Church, 20201 Southfield Freeway, on the southbound side of Service Drive, south of 8 Mile. So we're on the Detroit side. And it doesn't matter if you're Christian. It's not about denomination, y'all. I really want to make sure to say that. This is a community. Healing a community is the title of it. In this course, we're going to be talking about sexual abuse and sexual assault using the book Hush, as Tanisha talked about. So it's going to be at 6 p.m. So I'll have more information about that, and there'll be flyers on the social media, and I'll be doing some Facebook Lives on it as well. But the most important thing is to make sure that we educate ourselves, one, so we're not walking around repeating these crazy myths that's out there and perpetuating the falseness that's going on. And then two, so that way we can equip ourselves to be that support person for some way we may not even know has been affected or impacted. And who knows, and I'm not trying to put there, you never know when it's going to be your number, but you don't know what you don't know. It's sexual abuse and sexual assault is not a monopoly for just on kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening at all age groups, even seniors, especially in those homes. So please, let's get ourselves educated. Please, let's become a community, a healed community, so that way we can stop this generational curse, if you will.
That is a wonderful way to end that segment. We want to talk about healing. We only have a couple more minutes. Tanisha, will you give me a statement on what healing looks like? Tell us how to reach you. Tell us about your support group and where we can buy the book Hush.
So healing for me looks like being able to remember the event, but not feel the sting of the event. Not crying, not being emotional about it, but standing in my truth, sharing the story in strength and in freedom and in victory. Yes, it happened, but God gets all the glory because I'm still here and it didn't kill me. It didn't take me out. You can purchase Hush at soitiswritten.net in my store, or they can go to tanishajohnson.com. Same store, just a different website. If they wish to get the ebook version, it's available on Amazon, and so it's called Hush, Breaking the Cycle of Silence Around Sexual Abuse.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dominique, give us a statement on what healing looks like for you as inspiration to others, and tell us how we can find you, how we can purchase your book, and anything else that you have that's going on to support sexual abuse survivors.
So healing looks like to me actually the same thing that Tanisha said. That was something that the Lord gave me many years ago to show me that I was done with the situation. But I would also add that healing looks like me liking me, or the person liking themselves, being able to look at themselves in the mirror and see the person who survived, the person who made it through, the person who stood even in the face of their giant, in the face of their Goliath, and said, hey, you're not going to take me out. I got 5 stones in my hand, and I'm about to use one of these bad boys to slay you. And so it looks like you standing in the place of truth and strength and having joy and peace in who God made you, and not feeling the repercussions of all the trauma and the pain and the rejection and the hurt. So I definitely would say that's what healing looks like for me on this side. And just to let somebody know that it's possible. All things are possible when you are ready to heal, when you make a decision to heal. The healing is a choice. You have to choose healing in order for you to really grab hold to that thing and believe it and walk that journey. So people can find me on Facebook. I do have an author page, author Dominique Johnson. I also have a personal page, Dominique M. Johnson. I'm going to start a group as well, but I do have my ladies group already that I teach Bible study to every week. So I'm just figuring out how to get that in my schedule even more. So I'm also doing some things for my etiquette school. I just got a contract to do a charter school. So I'm excited about that. And just the Lord is really just blessing. And so I'm just trying to figure out how to manage all of the things that God is doing. And so they can follow me on social media. And if they ever want to join my women's Bible study, I am, been given a permission by God to go ahead and start posting it so that other women can join and be a part of our community, because that's what God told me to do. He told me to create a community of women who desire to have a closer relationship with God, who desire to be made whole with Christ, and to build a place where we can be safe and we can dispel that myth. We talk about myths that Black women can't be in the same space together without all of the trash and the cattiness. But not so, because the group of women that God has blessed me to be able to minister to, they're all good women who really want to be able to get through things like we're talking about: abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, all of those types of abuse, so that they can be the best person that God made them to be. So definitely they can find me on there, and all of my other information is on my social media pages. So amen. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you. Okay, Michele. So tell us again where we can find you, but leave us with one statement on healing before we go.
Yep, absolutely. So first, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Lift Life Coaching Solutions. You can also find me at Michele D. Clark Lift. That's my handle. You can also find me on my website, www.liftlifecoachingsolutions. And you can also buy the book on my website, liftlifecoachingsolutions.com. And so I would say, and of course, you can reach out to me, and you can reach me at 586-298-2121. Text me. And if you all text me today, if you actually, you know what, I gotta prop up my hostess here, the hostess with the mostest. So if you all text me, just say, Kim Davis, Living Inspired. Let's just go and put that together. Kim Davis, Living Inspired. If you put that out there, then you will get a no cost exploration and conversation with me, 20 minutes. So I would love to connect with you, because there's so many people who need healing. And so if you want to connect with me, trust me, I want to connect with you. So you can reach me, text me at that number. And if you're not certain if you want to walk in your purpose yet, you're just kind of like, I don't know what to do, you can also just shoot me an email. It's a little less invasive, I guess. You can shoot me an email at Clark, MD, like doctor, Clark, CLARK, M as in Mary, D as in David, at Lift Life Coaching Solutions. And just shoot me an email, and we can just chat it up. So what I would say now, give me what we're supposed to say about healing.
Yeah.
So our two beautiful authors right here, I'm going to see you and I'm going to raise you. So basically what they said, and then I'm going to put it this way. You know, I started Lift Life Coaching Solutions because I wanted to be that beacon of light for other women. And now that I have started, I am that beacon of light for others. So healing to me looks like being able to stand and walk in your truth and also reach back and help others. Be that trailblazer and also have that pathway so that others can also be healed. And so every person you see here right now, you know, Tanisha, Dominique, the other ladies, all of us are that image of healing. And I'm saying this, that healing is a journey, not a destination. Every single day that we get up, we have to choose, like Dominique said, we have to choose to be healed. Stay healed. Being, we're human beings, and that's why it's called that. Being is in the present. So every day we wake up, we make that choice and we move forward in our truth and continue to speak out about it, put a stop to it, and help others to heal. And that's what we do. That's my slogan is, you know, with Lift Life Coaching Solutions, we're living inspire, free, and transform. So that's what we do. And that's who we are. So ladies, reach me. I would love to connect with you. Thanks.
Thank you for coming on the Kim B. Davis Show and discussing this very important topic and giving us tips and tools on how to navigate this and what healing looks like. I hope to continue this conversation and hope to have you all on again at another point in the future. So thank you guys for taking the opportunity to tune in. I hope that you will join us on our next show. You know me as Kim B. Davis, your host. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Snapchat, everywhere on social media. You can find me at kimbdavis.com as an author and see all the books that I have written. You can see this show at youtube.com/Kimberly Batchelor Davis. You can also listen to this show on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Stitcher. Thank you guys again. I hope you'll tune into the next show. And as always, remember, be magnificent.